Oh shit, what was I gonna make a video on again today? Just kidding. Hey, it's Daniel, and welcome to another video by the Entropy system. Today we're going to be talking about something that is integral to having DID, which is amnesia. And as the member of the system who still experiences amnesia the most, I figured that I would take this one. When movies portray amnesia, it's usually like you wake up and you're like, oh, where am I? Who am I? Who are you? Big dramatic, or, in association with DID, it would be like you wake up in the middle of a street somewhere and think, oh, how did I get here? Where am I? First of all, if you have DID and you were suddenly in another place, you probably wouldn't have a big emotional reaction to it. You'd probably be like, wow, I really must have spaced out, huh? Not to say you couldn't have a big reaction, but generally the brain tries to smooth things over when you experience something that you can't explain with DID. DID loves to hide from itself. And all amnesia is not just like the same across the board. It varies a lot both in source and how it is experienced. Like, you can have amnesia because you had some kind of physical brain trauma or because you drank too much last night, both of which cannot be used to diagnose someone with our disorder. Also, the type of amnesia that I'm going to describe, not everyone with DID experiences every single type of amnesia that I'm going to discuss, and not everyone who experiences these type of amnesia have DID. There are other causes and sources, but that being said, we're a DID channel, so we're going to primarily focus on the experience within the realm of DID. The first type of amnesia we're going to talk about is anterograde amnesia. This type of amnesia occurs when the brain struggles to or is unable to create new memories after some sort of triggering event. Usually a person experiencing anterograde amnesia remembers things before the event. For example, they could remember their childhood or young adulthood very, very well, but afterward they might meet someone and then the next day have no idea who that person is. Neurological damage or diseases such as Alzheimer's are the most common cause of this type of amnesia. However, trauma and psychological stress can be a cause as well. Our short-term memory sucks a lot. We can take in new information and then immediately not know what was just said. This is especially common with numbers for some reason, but it can apply to a lot of things. We have to really actively concentrate to take in new information and remember it. Oftentimes, we will have to write it down in multiple locations in order to stick it to memory long term. This doesn't mean we have no short-term memory. It doesn't occur all the time, but we do struggle with it, and from what people have told us, it seems to be more than other people. I can't attest to that for sure, I just know it happens a frustrating amount. The next type of amnesia I want to talk about today is retrograde amnesia. This is when a person loses memories leading up to a traumatic event. Again, they can still remember old memories, but let's say like the week or two before an accident, the person cannot remember where they were or what they did. Again, most commonly, this is caused by neurological damage or disease. However, psychological stress and trauma can also cause this. Not a lot of stuff in our life was like normal, bang, giant event. So we don't really struggle with this one specifically. There definitely could be people with DID, and probably are, that do have something like this, especially if someone's DID was formed because of, for example, being a part of a natural disaster where things are just like, poof, and then continue to be traumatic after that. Yes, with DID, you do have big chunks of time that are just like missing, but that is a little bit different, and we will get to that one in a little bit. This is very specifically a traumatic event, kind of blocked out stuff that happened immediately beforehand. Not necessarily during or after, just right before. The third type of amnesia I want to talk about today is source amnesia. Source amnesia is really a very universal thing. Like, I'm sure we all remember hearing you eat 8 spiders a night on average or something like that, but nobody is quite sure who told them that or when. You just don't remember where you got that information. Forcing yourself to fill in those gaps is also a reason a lot of misinformation gets spread unintentionally, so, you know, double check yourself when you're saying something for certain that you don't know for certain. But that aside, we experienced this a lot, especially when we had amnesia between each other, when one of us would get information from somewhere, another person would front, not remember that whole event where we got the information, but still for some reason know bits and pieces of it. That specific example is kind of mixed with the next type of dissociation I'm going to talk about, but it still falls under this umbrella. But the fourth type of dissociation I want to talk about is, drumroll please, dissociative amnesia. The core experience of dissociative disorders. Dissociative amnesia is when the brain blocks memories from forming as a trauma response to a traumatic event. So the memories during that traumatic event don't stick. While the other types of amnesia can be caused by some kind of physical head injury or degenerative disease, or simply just normal forgetfulness sometimes, dissociative amnesia is purely a trauma response to trauma or extreme stress. Abuse, neglect, combat, natural disasters, you name it. Now, you don't have to have DID to experience dissociative amnesia. It can be a part of PTSD, or complex PTSD, or depersonalization, derealization disorder, or, you know, just the whole spectrum of trauma disorders and dissociative disorders. But with DID, dissociative amnesia is a core part of that experience. Sometimes the memories get put into one alter, or a handful of alters, while the others are protected from it. Sometimes this can even result in a split or a fusion of alters in order to keep those memories dissociated from other parts of the brain. Sometimes it's just whole hog, baby. None of us get it. We dig and we ask each other, but there are just some memories that not a single one of us hold, and we just have to accept that the brain didn't process them, and they're probably gone forever, which, at this point in our life, we're okay with that. We've remembered enough. We get the gist. We don't need every detail. But what does dissociative amnesia feel like? Is it really, again, like it is in the movie, where you wake up and you're like, what happened? Where am I? You know, we've all seen The Hangover, where they sit up and you're missing a tooth and you have a tattoo on your face and you're like, I better figure out what happened last night. And yes, it can happen like that. That is what we call blackout amnesia. Blackout amnesia is exactly like what it sounds, and it's what most people think of when they think of amnesia. Just fully no memory, no recollection, nothing. You look back at that time and it is just a giant blank. In our experience, blackout amnesia is pretty uncommon. It does happen. It still happens to us, especially if there are, you know, high dissociative barriers between specific alters, or if we are actively going through a stressful event, a switch happens, and we need to hurry up and share the memories with whoever just fronted because they've got nothing, baby. But all in all, for all of our amnesia, blackout is just a teeny tiny corner of how we experience it. There may be systems with a ton of blackouts. We can only speak for ourselves, but for us, it's pretty rare. What we experience the most, and this is a colloquial term, I've only actually heard this officially used in reference to alcohol-induced amnesia, but in the DID community, we use this pretty frequently, the term being grayout amnesia. With grayout amnesia, you still are missing a lot of information, just not all of it. There are little bits and pieces, tiny little pixels that broke their way through that you retain. Just the big picture, Who knows? There was a particularly stressful day at university when we were still there. One of the alters in our system at the time, Kit, fronted during class, took a whole bunch of notes. She was very studious. Wrapped up the school day, and as she was leaving, Wynn came back out front and knew fully certainly that they had been in the school building the entire time. They knew that they hadn't left, and they vaguely knew what class they were a part of just now. But that was it. They had a very low resolution image of what had just happened, but the majority of it, and really the important details of it, were not there. Honestly, in our experience, Grayout amnesia is worse than Blackout amnesia, emotionally. Maybe it's because we experience it more often, but usually when we have Blackout amnesia, we just don't realize that we lost that time because we don't have a memory of that time. A couple of the most obvious examples is when things have moved that we cannot explain. That is distressing. Like when one of our previous alters, Mistletoe, went and threw out all of our silverware because she was mad at Wynn. Or when we were packing up for a week-long canoeing trip with our geology department, and Wynn walked into the bathroom to find a bunch of socks just sitting in the sink. When there is proof that we have lost time and have no memory of it, that is distressing. But a lot of times, especially in the beginning, we just didn't know. We looked at the clock and it was 2 hours later and we're like, wow, we lost track of time. Isn't that weird? Maybe that just speaks to how, like, boring and repetitive our life is. I don't know. But when we have Grayout amnesia, we know that we are missing the picture because we have, you know, like a picture made of 5 pixels and we know there's supposed to be more detail there, but we simply can't fill that detail in. Knowing that we don't know causes a lot of emotional distress. The last way that you can experience dissociation that I'm going to talk about today is something called emotional amnesia. I don't know if this is a properly clinical term or if this is just a colloquial DID community term, but it is something that is very much tied to dissociation. Emotional amnesia is when you can remember details of an event, but it doesn't feel like you are the one who experienced that event. More like you're watching a TV show that you remembered, or maybe watching somebody else's memory. There is no emotional tie to your memory of that event. That gets experienced a lot just in our day-to-day. Like, I am the one filming. Wynn is not going to feel an emotional connection later to this specific video because Wynn didn't film this. It's the same brain, it's the same body, but I am the one who's got the emotional connection to this memory. Sometimes we all have emotional connections to it, and, you know, we can use I when we mean, like, Kim or something like that, but sometimes it very is distinctly, this is a memory that I know that my body experienced, but I don't feel like I experienced it. Emotional amnesia, even for us, is not always alter related. Sometimes after an extremely stressful event, the alter who was out front during that time can remember the event and just, our brain says, nope, that wasn't you, and the emotional connection to that event is gone. If you find someone who can just really easily talk about the grisly details of their trauma, it may be because they have some level of emotional amnesia towards the event. The list I just gave is far from all-inclusive, but more than anything, I wanted to give you guys a snapshot of how diverse amnesia can be experienced, where amnesia can settle in reference to some kind of triggering event, what part of the memory leaves, how much of it goes away. There is a lot of variety to it, so if somebody says they have amnesia, you may not necessarily know what that means just right away. There's way more information to be found there. Talking about your experiences with amnesia can be very emotionally vulnerable, so if you're wanting to talk to people who have had similar experiences as you, I hope you'll consider checking out the sponsor of our channel, Dissociative.cafe. It's a grounded, healing-first blog and forum made by systems for systems. We wouldn't accept them as a sponsor if we didn't believe in the power of the community that is being made over there. And so if it even slightly interests you, we absolutely encourage you to check them out. And if you want some extra Entropy system in your life, please consider checking us out on Patreon. We have a bunch of fun rewards such as monthly exclusive content, a Patreon-only Discord, and a monthly Zoom call. If you're already a patron, from the bottom of our heart, thank you so much for your continued support. And an extra big thank you to Disco Delirium, The Electric Circus, Shimron, Sarah G, and Will Mitchell. Genuinely, to all of you, we could not continue this channel without you, and your support means everything to us. And to everyone who's still on the video, hey, I hope you remember you are loved, you are valuable, and you are valid. See you next time. Bye!